for Gladiators, this is where we want to see a bit more from them, because we've seen many times, and the devs say this too, that they need to start taking shots at teams because they have clear sight lines over the field, and it looks like Vampires are going to go for the crash. They need to receive well here, John.
Infinity IQ might even be able to get a couple of sightlines over this fight, as well as Alpha 7. Good start to proceedings. Nade sent over to Sweat, but Kitsune goes down on a trade. Meku wants to push them back off this window to allow for this res to come through. Playing as 3, you need every advantage you can get, but Kitsune goes down as Tony K seals the deal. Ravenclaw up high ground with that off angle. So important on this fight. It's forced Gladiators to play along this ridgeline where they have a disadvantage in terms of those numbers already.
Ooh.
But that's what I was looking for. A third-party shot coming through from Infinity IQ across the way. The backs of Vampire are exposed, and it will slow them down on these pushes. They are down to 2, but they have got a little bit of a lifeline. Alpha 7 as well, from the top of Everest, might be able to spot Ravenclaw.
I think the fact of the matter is that the Infinity spot this happening, they know now that their compound is just really not safe. And this is a really good one to take. It's towards the central arena. In the meantime, DRS have made a massive swing on the southern side up towards Mount Everest and are looking to take out players in this spot. Alpha 7 first to face.
D plus Kia swept aside as Aegon XA8 try and leave from the chopsticks from those Gatka fields. As we're back on board with Gladiators trying to hold out. Killer did get knocked. Carrillo low, but Rules is even lower. Will fall down first. And Alpha 7 looking good to try and hold the top of this. A 2-for-1 trade in terms of knocks right now. Another nade launched over by Revo, who's playing that point man for the roster. Delta close by. Gianzi falls next. And just the one for DRS. Will their run be drawn short here? Yes, it will. Alpha 7 play with 4 eliminations on the card. A res available onto Senatexa, and Ikerd not pushing on just yet.
Revo just drops Hellfire from above there. Just bullets raining down on the guys from DRS. Very difficult to get away from that, but I think he just wanted the fight to be completed as quickly as possible. Like we said before, clean engagements from Alpha 7. Quickly pulling out the wet wipes and getting rid of DRS from the top side of Mount Everest. Now they can focus over towards Ikerd once again. Looks like Vampires are trying to push further in towards where Gladiators are currently trying to hold. They'd like to get rid of them, so they can't capitalize on a third party that comes through from the Infinity, who are waiting. Schweppes takes a huge amount of damage. This is very good for Meku, holding on for as long as possible close up.
Tony K, no nades in hand. Playing around, just trying to spot the players near the window. Won't be so lucky. Nade around the edge finds a lot of damage onto Meku. Tries for the drop shot, and there's no backup with the sightline blocked on the smoke. Matic falls second, and Vampire stay up as 4. A nade was launched to that backline to clear out Matic, and the Gladiators are eliminated, not able to suppress the oncoming onslaught from the Vampires.
And with that, Vampires cut off that sightline coming from Infinity IQ. They knew they had to do something shortly. They wait up, they get all those stims on board, and then they push in. S2G though, Ray-Z still going strong. Absolute destroyer over in the PMWl. And he finds another, not before he goes down to 8-on, but what a defiant performance there from S2G. Ray-Z comes in clutch.
1 versus 3 against BTR. A third party shot through the window, snuck in there to close down the run, but you're right, a phenomenally defiant play, as you so aptly put it. Vampire now with priority compound that once was Gladiators. They took down, they opened that gap in the armor for the Gladiators by eliminating Tixi, and they moved through and finished the job.
Infinity IQ, I just think that they have made an odd play to hold in that area for so long. They saw the fighting happening. You know that this is one of the priority compounds in the map. You know, you just take that third party in that case and you just hope that it goes well and trust in yourselves to pull it off. I think Vampires have done a marvelous job in terms of strategy and forward thinking. They spot that they take down the players of Gladiator earlier on. They take down Tixi. They understand the rotational path that's going to happen. They push them over towards this building. And then from Gatka, as soon as it heads towards that north side, they know they have an opening there. So they control the south and the north at the same time because they're confident to take that crash over towards Gladiators, understanding that there most likely will be 3. Now the Infinity finally pulls the trigger, but I think it's too late.
Vampire have very much established themselves in this position. And in fact, there's shots and knocks already out onto the field. Ferrari goes down with Falcons on that third party. They don't even fully commit to this push. As Alpha 7 now do spot out a player from Vampires and take him down with a full flush. The good news for Vampire is that both DRS and Gladiators are down and out of this match, which means that everything from this point on is gravy on their point lead. However, they do want to maximize that. At every turn, we've spoken about how pivotal it is to get these points on board where you can.
Alpha 7 have been building up to a strong performance this entire time. What an amazing initial grenade. Those are hard to pull off. Straight round the corner, finishes to prevent the information on the peak. Doesn't get too much time to deal with it. And straight away looks over towards Yuhai. It's so unfortunate bullets coming afterwards because he could have survived a lot longer from that spot. Ravenclaw, though, it was a questionable play. I think running out from that side without clearing any of Everest or scouting it, considering he is the scout, probably should know that there are going to be players up towards Everest side moving downwards. It just leaves them a little bit weakened. FaZe takes down a bit more. Ikert out, and that'll extend them up towards that leaderboard. 9 eliminations so far found.
7th place overall right now for FaZe. A really important jump as well. Remember, we've spoke about it so much this bubble. If they can keep this rolling, they might be in the money. It's the main event from this All-Star stage, getting that qualification spot. Alpha 7, they've managed to make their way all the way down. They're still on that far side of the road and will have to go a little bit further. Vampire can stay in their compound though, Blank.
They can hold on, and I think that if you are Vampire now, you gain some information, albeit losing a player that way, so it was Ravenclaw having to take bullets from the back to be right. I think there's guys behind us, so with that information, they most likely will wait for Alpha 7 to be forced in by the blue itself before they play their hand, trying to maybe make Alpha 7 fight against Infinity IQ, force that engagement between the two teams. Because we're out into open ground after this, so Vampire has to make the most out of this situation where they still have the walls around them. They still have the windows to peek out from. Because they need to cause casualties to a lot of teams. Luckily, A7, I think, is realistically the only other team that's going to make it towards the end game with 4 players, other than Aegon and A. But they are taking a huge amount of damage so far.
Ooh, Falak taken low. Blade also taken away. Very, very difficult situation for Aegon XA8. They've still got a whole chunk of points out of this game. A lot of value found. Shots over towards Mela to pick up yet another one from IQ on the south side. UZM and IQ. 3 eliminations for UZM, 4 for IQ. Falak down with 6 and Blade with 4. Very, very solid entry.
Yeah. I think about Vampires, right? They've played a very good game so far. For Alpha 7, though, in a fielded finish, this is something that we will reiterate time and time again. 4 players versus any other team that has less than them, it's almost a guaranteed victory off the back of that if you play things right. You just have more angles, more refrag potential. So if Vampire want a chance at winning this versus Alpha 7, they need to cut the numbers of that team. They're being really slow with pushing out as carefully as possible. It's less likely that they'll be able to force that engagement between them and Infinity IQ now because Alpha 7 is picking them apart.
Point could go over to Vampire here. It's taken by Senatex. Both teams were looking out that way. Really important to be able to get that knock. Looks like Vampire opting to not pick up the DBSs for that late game on in these fielded finishes.
Yeah, it's smart. What is the chance that you're going to be in DBS range, in a fielded finish? You're always going to be on either side of the circle. It's pretty funny, though, the fact that this engagement here probably would be great to have a DBS on board because the team that is most likely to be the biggest threat to you is right next door.
Luke has equipped one of those. The buildings will be littered with those body boxes. We'll have plenty of them in a plentiful supply. And you can keep one in the back pocket even in these fielded finishes. Just in case on one of your players. Alpha 7 looking to move through with Infinity further down the hill. FaZe staying alive with Mormon out in the fields, as is on Zen. Hoiga moving through this smoke train will get spotted. Actually, a nade is the thing to find it, but the point still goes over towards Carrillo. 9 eliminations now for Alpha 7, as Vampire still holding them out. And the impetus is on Alpha 7 to move here. Vampire are in the next circle.
It's a difficult sightline to play around with as Vampire, and there's little to no utility on side for them. Moving through this fielded area, smokes would have been ideal, but not having nades is crucial for Vampire, because nades over this ridge side towards Alpha 7, who have to move towards Vampire, would have been fantastic. The fact that they really lack that kind of utility is a really big deal. They're gonna have to just go for a full-on gunfight.
We saw Mafioso from Alpha 7 break up towards the Everest side of these fields in order to push Mormon back from FaZe and allow them a little bit more leeway to go for this fight. You still have Kaidulan crawling his way forwards, and Mafioso's still worried about Mormon, so they need to isolate these threats and take care of them. The first one is dealt with, but Mormon is still there on a side swipe. Not really too much utility for Alpha 7 either. Revo might opt to just break out and leapfrog Vampire fully.
Right now, Alpha 7 is lacking on supplies. I thought it was bad for Vampires, but they've got little to no bullets remaining. Revo 40 in the mag, 18 remaining left over. But so is Schweppes. This game has been absolutely dry on resources, and this is where having that secondary in terms of a submachine gun instead of the DBS is really coming into play. It's very, very smart from Vampire, setting up for an endgame.
That crate also a massive blessing. I mean, imagine finding an M249 in there. That's just...
I think they picked up a Groza, in fact.
Ooh, could be even better. Yeah, look at that.
Back.
Excellent. Swap out that M4. Tony, plenty of ammo.
See what I mean? They've got nothing left.
This is such a stalemate between these two teams for Alpha 7 don't want to go ahead. They don't want to go into the sightlines of Vampire, and Vampire are willing to just let them wait.
Man, Schweppes is in such a dangerous position as well, but he needs to provide that information across. Playing around with this bush in front of them, which is likely to get sprayed out. I think Alpha 7 has played this game slow.
Spots.
Bullets are going to be a problem.
And is spotted in turn. UZM moves forwards with the cover, can get the res onto IQ. The zone will crunch them in fair.